Hello there. Today I watched the 6th episode of Dead City, Doma Smo, and now I want to tell you about it. It was directed by Ganja Montero and written by Eli Jorn. In this episode, we get a lot of big confrontations, few big reveals, and we meet the mysterious head of New Babylon. If you're worried about spoilers, this video will contain them, so exit now. To start off, I want to go through the big moments of this episode, because this was the end of a story arc and there was a lot to talk about. The episode starts off with Negan and Pearlie running into Ginny. Ginny and Negan share a moment until Maggie shows up. Negan tells Ginny she shouldn't be there, and Ginny tries to warn Negan about Maggie, but he literally cuts her off mid-sentence, tells her the truth about himself in the harshest way possible, and sends her away to New Babylon with Pearlie. It was a big emotional moment with Ginny finally talking, and Jeffrey Dean Morgan, Lauren Cohen, and Mahina Napoleon all nailed it. Morgan goes through a roller coaster of emotions, starting with relief and ending with a fake callousness meant to help push Ginny away. We see bits and pieces of his true feelings break through in the seconds where she can't see his face, and it makes for a bittersweet moment. We see how much he cares and exactly how far he's willing to go to keep her safe. Cohen's Maggie sees this moment, and for the first time, she starts to understand Negan a little bit. She opens up to him afterward, and even though she still went through with her plan, this was the first moment you start to see her reconsidering her path forward. Napoleon looks relieved and happy to see Negan again, and even tries to use her voice to get through to him, but ends up hurt by his words. She did a lot of reacting in this episode, and her facial expressions were great. After Pearlie takes Ginny away, Negan and Maggie continue on in their search for the Croat, and Negan starts to realize that Maggie set him up, and Maggie starts to feel conflicted about it. Morgan does an amazing job with his facial expressions in this section, telling the entire story without a word. The best part is when the two of them look at each other and realize the game is up, and they start fighting out of nowhere. That buildup was great. There's a little scuffle between them, and then after winning, Negan is captured when the Croat shows up. They go through with the prisoner exchange, and the Croat can't help but reveal his master plan. They were always after Negan, they only ever used Maggie to get to him, and they had been looking for him for a while. When the exchange goes through, Negan leaves with the Croat, and Maggie takes Herschel back to the mainland. We get a conversation with Maggie where she is berated by Herschel being obsessed with Negan, and it ends with Maggie crying and the two driving off to New Babylon. Back in New Babylon, Pearlie takes Ginny home and then goes to report to his superiors. He tells them the story about what happened, but he lies and tells them that he shot and killed Negan. His boss, a well-dressed woman with a smile on her face, politely makes it clear that she's in charge and that his family's in danger if he lies. And she wants to know everything about the methane production Pearlie saw. Pearlie's section was awesome this week, and Gaius Charles plays it well. We see him reconsidering things as he drives through New Babylon, and he does a lot of subtle emotional work. When his superiors start threatening him, it becomes quite clear that he might be wrong about the city and the people running it. His unnamed boss, played by Jasmine Walker, starts off nice and polite, but even when she's smiling, it's like she's baring her fangs at Pearlie. It's a great little performance, and she comes off as quite sinister. The final section of the episode sees Negan being brought to meet with the Dama. On the way to the theater, and in the hallway before meeting her, we get a long monologue-style conversation in which Zelko Ivanik's Croat bears his soul to Negan. He tells him how Negan saved him and reveals the truth about the island. He seems so happy to see Negan again, and the way he talks about him feels like he worships at his feet. It gets even weirder when he refers to Negan as dad and the Dama as mom. Ivanek plays it like a fanatic lost in his own little world. The menacing villain from before is gone and replaced by a sad and broken man. Ivanek plays it well, but I do miss the villainous presence. Finally, Negan meets with the Dama and we get a clash of titans. Lisa Emery as the Dama starts off by being cordial with Negan and is seemingly elated to see that he's not just a product of the Croat's delusions. Morgan acts like a stone in the scene, refusing all of her advances and shutting down any of her flattery. When she offers him the leadership role, seemingly out of nowhere, it seems too good to be true, and it is. During the reveal, Lisa Emery switches almost nothing but her posture, and yet she goes from being the weaker of the two to clearly holding the upper hand. The menacing tone in her voice drips with venom, and Morgan looks so deflated when he realizes the truth. She's still got leverage over him, and her whole plan was to get him there in a way that he would understand just how much influence she had over him. The story for this week was fantastic and saw the end of the first story arc. Rescue of Herschel and the beginning of a new one, uniting the tribes of Manhattan against the government of New Babylon. We have two new players in the Dama and the leader of New Babylon, and both of them have been set up as scary new villains for the protagonists to deal with. I love the nuance of the episode with Negan playing the bad guy to protect Ginny, but sacrificing himself to protect Herschel and Maggie. The Croat seemed like a terrifying villain, but turned out to be a broken man who went mad when he got a taste of power. And neither New Babylon nor the Barazi is as simple as we first thought. There was a lot of character development from Negan, Maggie, and the Croat, and we got our first look at Herschel and the leader of New Babylon as characters. It was exciting watching these big moments play out, although the one action sequence in the show could have had a bit more energy to it. Visually, the episode isn't much to write home about. It's basic drama-style conversations that take place in different locations. There's a conversation in a car, in an ambulance, on the street, in the office of the new Babylonian leader, and at the Dama's theater. The leaders and the Dama's offices are the most interesting locations, but they're basically just nice sets filled with a lot of little details. They do make for interesting spaces, but the characters don't make use of them. They don't walk around in them or show them off. The one action sequence wasn't long, it was just some quick basic edits of Negan and Maggie fighting. The zombies in that scene didn't do anything, and during the rest of the episode, felt like part of the landscape as opposed to an actual threat. Sound-wise, the episode makes effective use of background instrumentals to support the emotions of the story, and uses a little bit of classical music to create an atmosphere in the Dama's office. The music isn't very significant as it comes in quietly, and while it does match well with the scene, it's repetitive music that isn't interesting on its own. Overall, the episode has some great writing, some great acting, and decent production value. It's an entertaining episode that sets the show up for a big future. Maggie and Negan are both great characters that are holding strong, and Pearlie is starting to blossom. I can't wait to see the war between the two settlements and whether or not Negan returns to his old ways or finds a new path. As for a rating, I'd give this episode a 7 out of 10. And remember, those are just my thoughts on the episode. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Bye-bye!